You've been taking a look at AWS certifications lately, and you're really considering taking the AWS Certified Solution Architect Pro. But one of the things you're concerned about is how difficult is it and what is it going to take to prepare. In this video, I'm going to cover how difficult is the AWS Solution Architect Professional, so you know exactly what you're up against and you can make an informed decision whether or not you're ready to prepare for it. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm Greg, creator of ThoughtfulTechy Cloud. I'm a senior AWS Solutions Architect at AWS. I've been with AWS for over 7.5 years, and I have over 20 years of experience in the tech industry. The ThoughtfulTechy Cloud YouTube channel is dedicated to helping you navigate your AWS cloud and tech journey. Whether you're new to cloud, currently in an IT role but you want to jump into cloud, or you're currently in a junior cloud role but you want to elevate up to solution architect or cloud engineer. Make sure you subscribe right now because I'm releasing videos every week to help you on your journey. So I'm going to level with you. I'm going to tell you straight up, the AWS Solution Architect Professional certification, it ain't no joke. I can't pretty it up. Now, I'm not saying that to get you all nervous. I'm just letting you know when you prepare for this, you're going to have to put in some work. This is not something you're going to be able to get through in a couple weeks and move on to the next one. This takes a lot of dedicated preparation. So what I'm going to go through in this video is everything you need to know so you can start getting ready for this if you decide this is the route you want to take. So we're going to go over several resources that are provided by AWS, and I'm going to link to everything down in the description below so you can look at this after you've watched this video from start to finish. Now, the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is a credential that helps certified individuals showcase advanced knowledge and skills in providing complex solutions to complex problems. See, that's critical that you key into that, because remember, there is a solution architect associate level, but there's a key difference here in that the professional, as you would expect, is going to be more complex solutions to complex problems. Now, it's still going to be very closely aligned to the AWS Well-Architected Framework, which are best practices that deal with things such as security, cost, performance, and there's also a focus here on automation as well. Now, this certification is a means for organizations and businesses to identify and develop talent with these critical skills for implementing their cloud initiatives. Now, who should actually take this exam? Let's see what AWS says here. The AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is intended for individuals with 2 or more years of hands-on experience designing and deploying cloud architecture on AWS. Before you take this exam, they recommend you have familiarity with the AWS command line interface, AWS APIs, AWS Cloud Formation templates, AWS Billing Console, the AWS Management Console, scripting languages. Be familiar with Windows and Linux environments. You need to have the ability to provide best practice guidance on the architectural design across multiple applications and projects of enterprise level, as well as the ability to align business objectives to the application and architecture requirements. So said another way, it's literally you get a set of business requirements and then you work backwards from there to figure out what's the architecture you need to build. Now, you need to also be able to evaluate cloud application requirements and make architectural recommendations for implementation, deployment, and provisioning of those applications on AWS. And you need the ability to design hybrid architectures. These are architectures where you have an on-premises type location, such as a data center or a co-located facility, and use key AWS technologies such as VPNs, AWS Direct Connect, as well as continuous integration and deployment process to make sure all this works. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, what if you don't have the 2+ years of experience? Well, what that simply means is that you're just gonna need to put additional effort to try to fill in those gaps. You're probably gonna have to study longer, read more documentation and technical documents, as well as definitely find a way to get some hands-on experience. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the exam. The exam is 180 minutes long, so that's 3 hours, okay? It is 75 questions, And I'll get a little bit more into those breakdown of those questions here in a second. And all you need to do to get this certification is simply pass this exam. But it's a lot more easier said than done. Now, the AWS exam guide has a really focused target candidate description, which is very close to the line to that landing page we just went over together. It's 2 or more years of experience in using AWS services to design and implement cloud solutions. The candidate has the ability to evaluate cloud application requirements and make architectural recommendations for deployment of applications on AWS. The candidate also can provide expert guidance about architectural designs that extend across multiple applications and projects within a complex organization. Now, I mentioned earlier there are 75 questions, all right? That's going to be a mix of multiple choice, which has 1 correct response and 3 incorrect responses, or distractors, and multiple response, which has 2 or more correct responses out of 5 or more response options. Now, of those 75 questions, there are actually 10 unscored questions that do not affect your score out of those 75. So only 65 questions will count. Now, here's the trick. You're not going to know which 10 questions are unscored, so you're going to have to answer all 75. Your results for this exam are based on a scale score between 100 and 1,000. Now, if you get 1,000 on this, you're doing darn good. If you get 100, you're doing not so good. The nice thing is you don't have to get 1,000 to pass it. You can get a minimum passing score of 750 to clear this exam. Now, it's very important that you pay close attention to what I'm about to say next. Each section of the exam has specific weighting. This means some sections have more questions than other sections. Now, I'm going to go through the outline of what's going to be on this thing, and they are divided into 4 domains. Now, domain 1 is design solutions for organizational complexity. This domain represents 26% of scored content. So this is almost worth 1/4 of what's going to be on the exam. Domain 2 is design for new solutions. This is worth 29% of scored content. So this is just shy of 1/3 of the entire exam. So you definitely want to make sure you know how to design for some new solutions on AWS. Domain 3 is continuous improvement for existing solutions. This is 25% of the scored content on the exam. And finally, domain 4 is accelerate workload migration and modernization, which is 20% of scored content on the exam. Now, I'm going to take some time here to drill into domain 1, which is comprised of what are called task statements. Now, I'm going to link to this in below. This is the exam guide for the Solution Architect Professional Exam, which has all these details. So I'm just not going to read you everything. I really want to just give you an example of the level of complexity and effort you're going to need to apply here. So remember, domain 1 was about designing solutions for organizational complexity. Task statement 1.1 is architect network connectivity strategies. Now, just get a sense of the type of knowledge you're going to need to know on these network connectivity strategies. You're going to have a familiarity of AWS global infrastructure. You're going to need to know about networking concepts, Amazon VPC, AWS Direct Connect, AWS VPN, transitive routing, AWS container services. You're going to need to be familiar with hybrid DNS concepts. For example, Amazon Route 53 resolver, on-premises DNS integration. You're going to have to be familiar with network segmentation, which includes subnetting, IP addressing, connectivity among multiple VPCs. You're going to have to know about network traffic monitoring. You have to evaluate connectivity options for multiple VPCs, connectivity options for on-premises to co-location and cloud integration, how to select AWS regions and availability zones based on network and latency requirements, troubleshooting traffic flows by using AWS tools, and using service endpoints for service integrations. That's just task statement 1.1, and there's 4 more task statements within domain 1. Part of the success to any AWS exam is making sure that you read the corresponding exam guide. for that certification. So make sure you take time to do that after you watch this video. Another resource that you really need to take a look at is the AWS Well-Architected Framework. The AWS Well-Architected Framework is based on 6 pillars: security, cost optimization, operational excellence, reliability, performance efficiency, and sustainability. One of the key things to understand on the Solution Architect Professional is that the questions will have a set of requirements. In addition to that, you're going to need to look through a certain lens, and that lens is typically one of the pillars of the AWS Well-Architected Framework. Now, before we go, I wanted to pop up a question here, so take a look at this one. A solutions architect needs to reduce cost for a big data application. The application environment consists of hundreds of devices that send events to Amazon Kinesis data streams. The device ID is used as the partition key, so each device gets a separate shard. Each device sends between 50 kilobytes and 450 kilobytes of data each second. An AWS Lambda function pulls the shards, processes the data, and stores the result in Amazon S3. Every hour, another Lambda function runs an Amazon Athena query against the result data to identify outliers. This Lambda function places the outliers in an Amazon Simple Queue service, queue. An Amazon EC2 autoscaling group of 2 EC2 instances monitors the queue and runs a 30-second process to address the outliers. The device submits an average of 10 outlying values every hour. Which combination of changes to the application will most reduce cost? Select 2. I want you to challenge yourself to answer that in the comments below, and I'll take a look at your comments and let you know how you did. Well, we've reached the end of the video. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do that right now. If you're still not sure if you're ready to pursue the Solution Architect Professional, check out this video right here where I cover how difficult the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate is. And I'll see you in the next video.